we're going to talk about the muscles. The muscles are probably the hardest chapter that you guys are going to have to learn. The first one that we were talking about is the sternocleidomastoid. This is one of the most superficial, and it has an origin. Remember, our origin is the attached to least movable structure, and it is attached to the clavicle. It inserts, which is attached to the more movable structure, it inserts on the mastoid process of the temporal bone. When one side is contracted, the head bends to the contralateral side, or the opposite side. When both sides contract, the head flexes at the neck, and it's innervated by the number 11 cranial nerve, which is the accessory nerve. So that is our sternocleidomastoid. We're going to be feeling that during the extra-oral exam. That is in the cervical muscle group along with the trapezius. And here's a picture of the trapezius. We can see here the sternocleidomastoid on the mastoid process there as its insertion, and then the clavicle around the front as its origin. The trapezius has an origin of the occipital bone and the posterior midline of the cervical thoracic region. It inserts on the clavicle and scapula, and the action is shrugging the shoulders, and also innervated by the number 11 accessory cranial nerve. Both of these, the sternocleidomastoid and trapezius, are part of the cervical muscle group. We also went into the muscles of facial expression. Remember, I said that all of these are innervated by cranial nerve 7, or the facial nerve. Most of these, the origin is on bone and the insertion is within tissue. Now, the first one was the epicranial. And remember, I had that one, it's a couple pages from here, right here on the bottom. And the epicranial has a frontal belly and an occipital belly. The frontal belly, the origin is the epicranial neurosis, and the insertion is the eyebrow or root of the nose. And then the occipital belly, the origin is the occipital or temporal bone, and then the insertion is the epicranial aponeurosis. For the epicranial, it lifts the eyebrows or forehead in surprise. So this is the one that I did with Kieran, and we showed our foreheads, small or big. We showed our foreheads lifting in surprise. We have the orbicularis oculi muscle, and the orbicularis oculis is the muscle around the eye. Its origin is the orbital rim, the frontal bone, and maxilla, and then the insertion is the lateral canthus of the eye. This encircles the eye and it opens and closes the eye. So Misha and I did this one. We also have the corrugator supercilii that has an origin of the frontal bone in the supraorbital area, and the skin of the eyebrow is where this one inserts. And this gives you a frown, or that vertical line in the middle of the forehead, the half pipe. Remember, I told you my husband's got that deep line in the middle. And Victoria and I tried to do this, but we don't have very big vertical lines, thank goodness. If we go back to the other picture, this is a good picture for you to know. We have the orbicularis oris, which the orbicularis oris encircles the mouth right here. It is not attached to bone, but the insertion is the labial commissure. And remember, as we went through all of these muscles today, we saw that the insertion for a lot of them is labial commissure. For this one, the action is it closes and purses the lips. So it's kind of a pout, and it encircles the mouth. We also have the buccinator. So if we look on this one, we can't see it. But on this one, we can see it right here, the buccinator. This is not a muscle of mastication, star, star, star. A lot of people, just with the name, the buccinator, think that this is a muscle of mastication. This originates, or the origin, is in the pterygomandibular raphe, and it inserts again in the labial commissure, and it compresses the cheek when chewing. So it aids in chewing and brings the food to the occlusal. This is the one that I did with Michaela, where we were pretending like we were chewing. We have the risorius as the next one. And the risorius, you have to take a look at in this area right here. So the risorius muscle from this view. The origin is the fascia superficial to the masseter, and the insertion again is the labial commissure. This stretches the lips, and this makes it so we smile wide. The next one that we have is the levator labii superioris. So levator anguli oris is right here. Levator labii superioris muscle is right here. So the levator labii superioris, origin is the maxilla, insertion is the upper lip, and it raises the upper lip or elevates the upper lip. I think Jordan and I did this one. The next one, the levator labii superioris aliqui nasi muscle, is the Elvis muscle. This is the one that Caitlin did. The origin's the maxilla, the insertion is the ala of the nose and the upper lip, and it raises the upper lip, and basically you sneer like Elvis. We have the zygomaticus major, which is the lower one. Let's see, which is the lower one, and then the zygomaticus minor, which is the upper one. So they kind of stretch from the lip area up to the zygomatic. So both of them have an origin on the zygomatic here. The zygomaticus major, the insertion is on the labial commissure, and the upper one, which is the minor, the zygomaticus minor, the insertion is on the upper lip. For the lower one, this gives us smiling, raises the corner of the mouth, and then the zygomaticus minor raises the upper lip and assists in smiling. So we had, I believe Bethany and Sarah B were the ones who participated with this one. We had the levator anguli oris muscle. Maxilla is the origin, labial commissure is the insertion, and then smiling is the action, and then smiling or bringing up the corners of the mouth. We have the depressor anguli oris, and then we have the depressor labii inferioris muscle. Both of those have an origin of the mandible. The depressor anguli oris has an insertion of the labial commissure. The depressor labii inferioris has an insertion of the lower lip. The anguli oris, so the angle of the mouth, lowers the corner of the mouth and gives us a frown. The depressor labii inferioris, that is lowering the lower lip or depressing the lower lip. We also have this little mentalis muscle, origin of the mandible, insertion on the chin, mental is chin, so insertion on the chin, and that raises the chin or protrudes the lower lip. Then we have the platysma, this big platysma. This is the one where I grabbed the last 4 students who hadn't been called. So Sarah D, Kiana, Kirsten, and Brooklyn. And we all grimaced. And we had our platysma that was showing in our neck area. So the origin is the clavicle and the shoulder. The insertion is the mandible or the muscles of the mouth. And then it raises the neck skin. As you can see, it's, down the neck area. And that gives us a grimace. So those are the muscles of facial expression and the cervical muscles.